All right, welcome to the first episode of the Mako Mindset Podcast. My name is Anthony Ogugliaro here with my wonderful wife.
Hi everybody, Nicole. Thanks for hopping on.
And we're really excited to be doing this. This has been an idea and a passion of mine for a really long time. I've always wanted to do this, and what better time to start this than during a pandemic and a quarantine? And I pitched the idea to Nicole, and she said, "Yeah, absolutely. Let's try and bring value to people." I think that there's a lot going on in the world right now that can be distracting and negative, and that's what we're hoping to do, is bring a little positivity to people. And this is going to be a lot of fun. This is our first time doing this. We've had some technical difficulties already, but you know what? We're solution oriented and we're figuring it out as we go along. And I guess you'd call this episode 1 the pilot. And we're going to go through a couple things here and have some fun. So, to start, I think that, we want to just give everybody an introduction of who we are. If you don't know us already, my name is Anthony. Obviously, I said that in the beginning. But I grew up in Belmore, New York, in a great little neighborhood, and with two parents that I couldn't have asked for better parents in the world. My mom was a bank manager for many years and now works in the insurance world. And my dad was the jack of all trades. I mean, he's been a newspaper foreman for about 25, 30 years. And then during the daytimes, he's been a painter at one point. He painted a bunch of houses and fishing and stuff like that I grew up with. And, they instilled in me pretty early on in my life what it means to just work hard for the sake of working hard. Not so much results driven, just no matter what you're going to do, put 100% of your effort in. Because that's what I watch them do every single day in their relationship and in how they raise me as well. I wrestled in high school at Mepham High School and always wanted to be a teacher. Went to Malloy where I met this wonderful lady, played rugby there, graduated with a teaching degree in special ed and social studies. And that's what I do today. I'm a social studies and English teacher in special ed at the high school I graduated from. So it's a lot of fun being around those halls again. And not much has changed other than the fact that every kid has a cell phone. I don't think I got a cell phone until I was a junior in high school. So that's a little different. But, I think that there's just so much goodness about growing up in the household that I did. And I'm from a big Italian family. So the holidays are always a big deal, a lot of love. And that's kind of my little background. Nicole, what about you?
Yeah, I grew up in Bethpage. I'm the middle child. I have an older brother who's a pharmacist and a younger sister who is about to become a nurse. So that's exciting. She just landed her first career, so she didn't even graduate yet. And so I was always a dancer my whole life. I was on kickline and, like Anthony said, rugby as well. Totally random, but I got to find this gem. And we're excited for this podcast to be interactive and connect in a fun way beyond just liking and commenting. And I hope it's interactive. We're curious to hear your feedback on future topics, and I look forward to getting to know you guys as well.
So this is going to be interesting because we have 2 mics here, 3 mics, but only 1 and a half are working. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Why are we here? I think that Nicole and I, over the past 3 or 4 years, have really committed ourselves to personal development and growing who we are, not only in our relationship and our marriage, but as individuals into the better versions of ourselves. And we've learned a lot from it. I've had friends ask me for advice, whether it be at work or in life. I've had students reach out to me, and whether it was coaching or not. And these lessons, I think, can have a lot of benefit for people. But at the same time, Nicole and I are just starting out and not only building our business, but building our relationship and our marriage and our family as we go on through our future here. So I think that one of the things that we really valued from this is that I hope this is a little bit more relatable. I think that every time you listen to a personal development podcast, it's from some multi-millionaire who maybe sometimes it's hard to connect with. And Nicole and I are nowhere near that yet. That's a goal in the future. But we want to be a relatable source, someone who's maybe at the same life stage as you or not too far ahead or behind you, and give you some real stuff that you might be able to implement in your life and be more balanced. And hey, we're not going to sit here and act like we have the answers. We don't. We're going to talk about our adversities, our struggles, our vulnerabilities too, because I think that it could be a benefit for you and your family and the people that you're trying to help. So really what we're going to start here is I'd like to interview my wife. For a lot of people, I think that the goal is you get a job, you get a career, and that's going to be your career for 30 something years. You know, my wife 3.5 years ago, before we were married, was given an opportunity with a company as a part-time job, a part-time gig. And I remember when she came home to tell me about it, was convinced she was in a cult, right? And I thought it was something stupid. I was like, why in the heck would you do something like this? You went to school to be a school teacher. And she was just like, Anthony, you know, I'm not as lucky as you, right? I graduated college and fell right into an unbelievable career at one of the greatest high schools. In my mind, I'm a little biased. I graduated from there. But she did not have the same luck. She bounced from school to school, city, back, charter school, religion, Catholic school, stuff like that, all over the place. So she was definitely growing dissatisfied in her career. And what I watched over the next 3 years was probably one of the most powerful women I know in my life, which is my wife, completely take control of her life. And so I'm going to interview her about something that I think a lot of people would love to do that she did. And that would be retiring at the age of 27 years old from your teaching career. What was that like for you at 27 to say, hey, I went to school for 4 years, got a master's degree in childhood education, and now I'm going to park that to the side to pursue something else. What was that like?
Well, it was incredible. You know, you have a vision your whole life to, and not even your whole life, but you have a dream for a few years and you can't even fathom it coming true. And then when it does, you automatically have some fear and self-doubt, of course, creep in. I'm not even going to deny that. But Anthony's being a little modest. He's the reason why I was able to do that, just because of the principles that we've learned and how much he's grown as well. That's probably one of the biggest compliments that Anthony's received is, you've changed, almost unrecognizable from his high school days until now. And isn't that the goal? Don't we want to constantly be growing? And so it's a true testament of his growth and his discipline to actually make it happen. And I'm forever grateful for that, because every day I get to wake up and do what I love the most. And I wouldn't really necessarily call it retire. I don't like to use that phrasing, because I'm still working head over heels in love with what we do. But I kind of view it as an end of that one chapter in teaching and the start of a whole entire new chapter of our lives together. And it's so fun to be able to do that together. And that's the goal, you know, to dream together and be there to see it happen together.
You know, she's funny. She doesn't like the word retire. I like the word retire because, you know, teaching as a career is much like a police officer, fireman. They like those jobs because you do your 30, you do your 35 years, you get the pension and you get the great benefits. And when Nicole said, hey, I'm giving all that up, you know, what was the feedback from your family and friends when you did finally do that?
Well, there's a lot of different feedback. From the school alone, when I tried to leave, they actually told me I wasn't allowed to, and I would be banned from all the schools from here on out. And I said, no, I don't think you understand. I'm leaving the profession. So if you were trying to threaten me, that didn't work. So that felt really cool. But all jobs do that, you know. They have their thumb over you no matter what, your every move. But the feedback was mixed. I try not even to think about it, and I definitely didn't even hear it, whether it was positive or negative. Because whenever you go on to do something great, people are always going to give their 2 cents, even if you don't want it. And whether it be positive or negative, you can't get too excited if they believe in you or, you know, they're your supporter, and you can't get too low on the lows if they're trying to bash you. You just have to stay focused on what you want, where you're headed, and just constantly work on your own self-talk. That was probably one of my own biggest growth points, is shifting the way you talk to yourself. And that's like rewiring your brain from decades, you know, and it's so cool to see how personal growth and personal development can change you from the inside out. And I feel like there's not enough exposure to really all the great information that's out there to really change who you are for the better.
You know, she said I was being modest. She's definitely being modest right now. I think that Nicole, where she inspires me the most, was how she went from this regimented, you need the 9 to 5 job, you need the job security, you're only as good as what your paycheck tells you are, mentality that's drilled into so many people. She took all that and decided to say, no, I'm going to be a powerful woman on my own and stand up for what I believe in, and I'm not happy with where I'm at. And rather than accept that, I watched this woman literally wake up every day and change something about her life each day, whether it was how she spoke to herself or the books she was reading or the people she was hanging out with or how she spoke about her job, how she spoke about her future. And she inspired me. I mean, I went from being a doubtful, skeptical spouse of the business to being supportive because I watched her conviction every day. And you know, how did this kind of, you answered this a little bit already, but how did you handle the adversity of, okay, great, September 1st rolled around, I no longer have a steady paycheck coming in?
Crazy, right? Your whole life turns upside down, like, okay, I'm in control fully. I need to be disciplined and strict with myself now, all right? You're your own boss, right? You can't slack off. But when it comes to doubt, it's all about really what you feed yourself. So we can let, your negative thoughts creep in more often than not, but that's what everybody does. But how can we prevent that? You have to set yourself up for feeding yourself the right things, whether it be books or podcasts, or Anthony knows I stick like Post-it notes in front of the house, in front of me all over the place, because sometimes we need reminders. And I know a lot of people these days focus on gratitude. That's the biggest thing to put yourself in the right mindset. And as long as you're crystal clear about where you want to be, and that you're on track to get there, that's the key to facing adversity head on, because it's inevitable, right? Things are not going to go your way. In fact, if they are going your way, you're not on track, right? Things are going to get crazy, and they're going to start pulling you down, and that's how you know you're on your way to success, really.
I like how you said that. If everything is going your way in your life, it means one of two things. I think this is where Nicole and I really embrace it, is that if everything's going your way, it's, you're either just the most blessed person on the planet, which if you're facing no adversity in your life, are you leaving the house? And then the second thing is, well, then you're just comfortable and you're not actually challenging yourself, and I think there's probably people listening. I know that for a fact, some of my friends from work who have kids, they're like, no, nothing ever goes to plan when you have kids, especially during a quarantine and you're trying to teach from home. But so many champions I know, school teachers, were not only homeschooling their own kids and then becoming 24-hour chef for their kids, but also, teaching their classes. And I'd say that's a big adversity, and you had to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. And one of my mentors and Nicole's mentors, Brian Batter, always says, if you're catching flack, it means you're over the target, right? And I think that the more adversity that gets thrown your way, the closer you are to growing just a little bit more to whatever it is that you want. So, I mean, we're going pretty quick here for our first podcast. We have a bunch of questions here from people that submitted. We took the top 5 because we literally had close to 40 questions submitted. I think about 20 of them were from Anna Rivera, close friend of ours and someone who we look up to and inspires us in business. But, so many great questions that came up. The first one here, I'm going to ask Nicole to start because she's crushing it. I think that she's really doing an unbelievable job. By the way, she's nervous to speak. I hope that you guys hear that. I'm afraid of public speaking, and she's crushing it.
One of my goals.
And she's an unbelievable inspiration to me every day. But, the first question here, I think, is actually pretty poignant for what we're going through today. Picking up a hobby or a side gig during the pandemic, like, what are your feelings on it? What should people be doing? What kind of things do you think really fit that during this time of quarantine, picking up a hobby or a side gig?
I mean, I feel like even before the pandemic happened, having a side gig was kind of like spare tire income. You need it there just in case, but in today's era, you need it. Because I think now more than ever, people are realizing, well, what does stability in a job really mean? But it's, if you have a family, if you want to live your life the way you want to live it, you need to have multiple streams of income. And that's just not just us talking. That's a known fact. Ask any wealthy or successful person, they have multiple streams of income, like 7 or 8. So now more than ever, I think people are realizing.
Yeah, I think that one of the most alarming things I heard and read about was that the average person, when COVID hit, and the pandemic started, especially here in New York, had about $400 in their checking account. And then obviously the stimulus and the unemployment came out, and I look at that and I'm like, well, so many people don't have that spare tire on their income. And a hobby or side gig is so important. There's so many things that people are talented in that they could be making money for, right? If you're a teacher, you could be tutoring. Right now, so many people are not going to send their kids back to school in September, even if they do open, right? Or maybe you have a musical talent. You could be doing guitar lessons and singing lessons over Zoom. I think that there's a lot of people who refuse to get comfortable during this time of quarantine, and they learned a new skill. They decided to establish a new business for themselves. I know that I saw a bunch of former students on Instagram. A couple of them started some hairstyling businesses from home, and like jewelry businesses that they're selling jewelry on Etsy. And I think during this time, the people who take this quarantine for what it's worth and say, you know what, I'm not going to focus on the bad. I'm going to take this right now and really, really start to grow a skill. You're going to notice one of the biggest shifts in your business and in your life, because you're going to have something new to add to your arsenal, your toolbox, when this quarantine does end, because it will end one day. And hopefully you do either get your job back, or maybe you're lucky like a lot of the teachers that you have a job still and that your business is still paying you. But at least you'll have that in your back pocket. Like, hey, God forbid anything happens, I do have this that I can grow, and it's a passion of mine. So I think that's huge. I think this is now more than ever is a great time to pick up a hobby. And even if it's not something you want to get paid for, maybe you now have the time to focus on your fitness again, right? One of the biggest things around reasons why people can't lose weight, it's not the workouts, it's the dieting. They don't have time to meal prep. Well, now you got all the time in the world to meal prep and eat the right way and change your lifestyle a little bit. I think if you're not doing any of those things, you're really wasting this opportunity, right?
If become an expert on something.
Yeah, and if you're wasting your time kind of vegging out on Netflix, I'm one to say, hey, I'll watch a couple shows on Netflix, but I'm also trying to grow myself, grow a new skill. I'm trying to learn another language right now. That's something that I've picked up. But there's so many things out there people could be doing and learning right now. All right, second question here is, why the financial industry, and how do you make it work building together?
Well, speaking about becoming an expert, especially in something that you don't know anything about, we had zero industry experience at all with finance or money or business. And I knew that from day one. I knew nothing about money, and it was always so unsettling to have to ask somebody else for help. And I just knew that it's empowering to know. So I was like, I need to learn this for myself. And so I was attracted to a place that taught it. And I was like, let me soak all of this up, and I can use my teaching skills to share it with others. And the need is just through the roof. And as time goes on, you become more and more passionate about it. And it wasn't something that I would have picked. If you were to tell me we would be in this industry decades ago, I would have laughed. But we're happy we did.
Yeah, I've never had a dream of doing anything with money. I think that growing up, my mom and dad were great at never allowing me to understand, if we had monetary struggles or not. And even if money was tight when I was a kid, I never wanted for anything. My family did a great job. My dad was a hustler. My mom too. Like we went on great vacations. We traveled. I had all the nicest stuff. But I also had a job at 13 years old as a busboy, right? So but I made a lot of money mistakes growing up. I bought stuff I couldn't afford, like a boat and a truck that I couldn't even get into. By the way, I'm 5'5". I had over $100,000 of student loan debt. But no one ever sat down with me to teach me, hey, here's how you budget. And my mom always said, here's how you budget, here's how you save. But who listens to their parents, right? It's like you become parent deaf. But I remember sitting and getting a financial review and saying to myself, why don't they teach this in school? Why don't they teach kids how interest works and how debt works and stuff like that? And As a teacher, that's where I became passionate about. Was like, there's so much curriculum change that can happen all over the United States. And if we help kids do this now, when they become adults, they're in a better position, right? And they're in a better position to do more with their lives and their family. And the financial industry is the highest paying industry in the world. It's the most lucrative industry in the world. So there's that too. And my wife's killing that. But I think building together for me, I love working with my wife. And yeah, it's not always easy. We definitely have moments where we don't want to be around each other. But it's so cool to have something that's ours, and that we, at the end of the day, when we put our head on the pillow, whether I'm teaching all day, I know that she's building the business while I'm at work. And I know that when I come home, we're both grinding as much as we can in both of our fields and together on our business. For me, I'm in two different worlds, right? But at the end of the day, building something together with your significant other is one of the most rewarding experiences. Now, we don't have kids yet. We just got a puppy. That's also been an experience. But I can imagine it's a similar feeling to when two people start to build a family with kids and you're building that family together. It's the same thing. Granted, raising children and running a business are two different things, but I think it's the same amount of pride when you see your kid do well and when you see your business do well because your spouse is killing it. It's definitely something that we hold really, really near and dear to us, that we get to do this together, even in the moments where we don't want to do it together.
It's cool to combine strengths. So Anthony has a lot of things that he's really good at, and when you come together, there's like no stopping you. It's like you really are one force headed in the same direction towards what you want. And yeah, it's you're like unstoppable, really.
Yeah, I think that what Nicole just said there, an old friend of mine, and I hope he listens to this, Chris Patton, he used to tell me, in a marriage, you have to have job security. I was like, what does that even mean? It's like, you want to be with someone that the parts in your life where you're weakest, they're strongest. And the parts where you're strongest, maybe is something that they might be a little weak in. Or maybe they're just stronger than you. I like to say she's better at everything I'm bad at, and everything I'm good at, she's better at anyway. Right? But, I think that we definitely, there's things that I've taught Nicole and Nicole has taught me. And in building our relationship together, like, I was the most disorganized, crazy, spontaneous, not even think, just do.
Now you're so organized. I'm like, I need to do what you do.
Where I think Nicole learned a little bit from my spontaneity and a little bit more of my enthusiasm for just like, let's go do it. Let's not think, let's just do, and we'll figure out the rest afterward. And we've definitely learned that from each other. Question 3, this comes from Harrison. How do you embrace the suck?
I love that. Well, I feel like the word suck is relative. It's really all about perspective, because we were actually just talking today. So many people have different problems in their life, and really what we view as hard is probably no big deal to somebody else. So think about, why does it suck in your opinion, and how could you view it in a way where you can start to love it? But there's always going to be things that we don't want to do or that are really hard in the moment. But just think about how much you'll grow from that situation, and looking back on that, you'll be like, I feel so great knowing that I overcame that. And that was no big deal compared to where we're at now. And it's just, sometimes you have to pay a price to get to where you want to be. So embrace it.
Yeah, I think of, I don't think I can answer this better than you just did. I think of it like a workout, right? Like, when you start a workout, you're fresh. And then by the time you do like your 4th or 5th lift, you're pretty sore and you're beat up, but you got to push through it in order to get the results that you want. And I think no matter what your endeavor is in your life, it's not going to be easy, right? There's going to be tons of adversity or suck that gets thrown your way. And I feel like when you embrace it and identify it, it gives you the power to overcome it. And it doesn't allow you to sit there and kind of dwell on it and milk a bad minute or moment into a bad day. It allows you to really focus on it and kill it right there. And I think that no matter what adversity, gets thrown in our lives, We were just talking about this earlier today. If you took everybody's problems and put them in a hat and had everybody pick out of it, you'd probably want your own problems back. And I always think about that, you know, and perspective is everything. I hate when people say like, oh, that's not a big deal. Well, to them, it might be a big deal. And by them overcoming it, they're going to get stronger. So rather than say, hey, get over it to somebody, help them get over it and help them and guide them to becoming stronger. Because then when that problem arises again, it's going to be so small to you. You're going to be like, I can't believe I used to get upset about this, right? Like, I think about it in our relationship. When we were early on in a relationship, I was so, even now, I'm a little needy, right? Like if she didn't text me back, I was bent up about it. Now I can go days without hearing from her through text. But, you know, it's like the things you used to think were really big issues are not issues anymore. And the bigger you get and the more you try and do, the bigger your issues are going to get. And the more the suck is going to come into your life. You just got to embrace it and be ready for it. And one of my mentors always says you start to be able to anticipate it coming and be able to be better prepared for it.
I think the bigger your goals and dreams are, you're able to just suck it up because that's so much bigger than this small blip on the map that you're experiencing.
Yeah. And this one's good. This one comes from Anna Rivera, as most of them do. What does success look like for you?
Freedom. Absolute freedom of time and income and really for you to be able to do whatever it is that you want to do. That's pretty much, to put it simply. We want to travel. We have so much, and we're going to be able to do all of that on our own time.
Yeah, I think that for me, success used to be, I'm an only child, right? So success used to be about me. But as I've grown as not only an educator, a friend, a husband, a son, I've realized that success is really about how many other people are you bringing with you. And it doesn't matter what your mission is, like whether it's in business or your family or your friends. Like, I think one of the proudest moments of a parent is when you get to see your child achieve something and know that you did a good job. When your kids are respectful, when they do the right things, when they treat people the right way, when they're just happy, right? Like, you know, as a parent, you're like give yourself a pat on the back. Mm-hmm. That's success. When, you know, you're at your job and maybe you have a team of people and your team of people at work is doing better than everybody else. And you're really motivating people to do better at work. I think that that's one of my blessings at my job. I've always had administrators and people in leadership roles that have always cared more about the team, you know, our department, than they did themselves. And they're always pushing us, and we're always pushing each other to do better for our students, right? We are always talking about how our kids are getting into college or getting jobs after high school, and in the world of special ed, that's super important. And then in business, I think, like, you know, Jeff Bezos, everyone talks about, he's worth $178 billion. By the way, he made $13 billion like last Monday in one day. But everyone talks about how successful he is, but people forget to talk about how many tens of thousands of people he's employed, how many millionaires and billionaires have been made just by investing in his company, and how those people have trickled down and hired people and built businesses and built charities and things like that. So I think that
influence.
Yeah, your success is influence, right? Like, how many people go to sleep at night thanking you for their success in their lives? I think that's success. And whether it's in business or monetary or just your family, you know, how many people are thinking about you and what you've done for them and how much you mean to them? I think that's success in my book. And then the last question here is, how do you stay positive in a world so negative?
Well, I feel like we try to do a good job of blocking ourselves from the negativity, not participating at all in negative talk, or we try to steer away from the news, although we have to try to say Aunt likes watching the news and staying current, but I don't really watch too much of it because I'd get upset. But just, again, you know, feeding yourselves the right things, and also who you associate yourself with. You know, everybody that we talk to, they're always excited, they're future focused. They know not to bring the negativity to us because we don't want to hear it. We want to hear about what we do have and what we have going for us. And really what you think about, you bring about. It sounds corny, but it works. You keep focusing on what you have and abundance, and you'll get more of it. So kind of just block it out altogether, the negativity.
Yeah, I definitely am not as good at that as my wife is. I can get caught up in, and I guess as a history teacher and politics definitely interest me. But what I've realized, especially recently, is that no matter what you say, people are going to hate you and people are going to love you. So you might as well just worry about, creating a better home for yourself, a better life for yourself, and making a good impact on other people. And as I started to do that, and started to block out, kind of put the blinders on to all the nonsense going on in the world today, I started to really be happier with myself. But like Nicole said, we have you are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And if you're hanging out with people who do nothing but talk about, negative crap, or constantly complaining, then you're going to wind up complaining and talking about negative crap. And your life is going to look similar to theirs. I'm so grateful that I have friends in my life, both in business, out of business, at work, in my family, that aren't really talking like that. They're talking about vision and, buying homes and creating a life and having kids, and, they're talking about aspirations and dreams. And I'm so grateful for that. I look at wedding photos, right, and of our wedding party, and I'm like, I've been friends with the same group of guys since I was in kindergarten, and they're all kind of like-minded to kind of us as a couple, and what we want in our lives and how we want to build a future. They're not really talking about, nonsense. And then in business, we've surrounded ourselves with mentors, and then like I said, the best way I think that you can handle maintaining positivity in a negative world is physical movement, getting yourself moving, whether it's running, walking, doing something, because depression, anxiety, a lot of the times is multiplied when you just kind of sit around and do nothing and you just start feeling sorry for yourself. I think getting out and moving a little bit is a super important part to being and having a more positive life. I mean, my dad, he's one of the funniest men you'll ever meet, but the dude never stops moving. And I think that has a lot to do with it. Whether he's working or fishing or out with the dog, or he's constantly trying to keep himself active because he doesn't want to be bored. Right? In the summertime is like his season. He's like Jimmy Buffett. He's literally Jimmy Buffett adjacent. So, but that's something that I admire about him, is he's constantly trying to do something and stay moving, and not become a vegetable, right? You get such a small amount of time here on Earth. You might as well make it count, right? So I'm glad that we did this. We're right on time, a little bit over. In the coming episodes, we're going to have topics per episode, and we're going to handle questions, and eventually we'll have guests on and interview some of the people that we admire the most. But really, it's interesting. Today we're recording this. It's going to be dropped, obviously, on July 31st. But today actually is Stop Human Trafficking Day. And something that is really important to Nicole and I is that cause. We got to work with a charity called Operation Underground Railroad back in January, and we've continued to really push what their narrative is saving kids all over the world from human trafficking and sex trafficking. So if you have a moment, look up their organization. It's an unbelievable organization, especially on a day like today. I feel like their cause is kind of getting buried in the news cycle right now, and it's a shame because there's so many kids out there that need help, and so many kids that need to be saved, and obviously it's something that's a passion of ours, and I hope that it becomes a passion of yours as well. And we look forward to increasing our viewership by our next episode next week, and I hope you all have a wonderful, blessed day. And you just got a little taste of what the Mako mindset is, guys. I didn't even say this, but the reason why we call it the Mako mindset is that sharks die if they stop moving forward, right? They're constantly moving. They don't stop, right? They wake up every day and they're on the hunt, no matter what gets thrown their way. And I think that that's the mentality that Nicole and I hope to live and embody, and hope to share with all of you. So thanks.
Bye, everybody.